everyone, it's Quarantine. I'm Amy.
And I'm Mitch.
And you're probably going to end up seeing my nosy coworker dogs today because they've been relentlessly attached to me. So I'm sorry ahead of time if you see them or if you hear a ball squeaking in the background. My dog acts like a toddler. Yeah, you. Acts like a toddler when he drops his ball and he expects mom to get it. So sorry ahead of time. We wanted to talk to you guys today about allyship in isolation. But before we do that, we are going to have another icebreaker question. So, Mitch, my question.
Pronouns.
Oh, there he is. That's Lennox. My question for you is, if you had to delete all but 3 apps on your phone, what would it be?
What are yours?
Okay, it's not playtime, honey. I think I would keep text messaging. Instagram. And those might be the only 2 I need to survive. Well, my email probably. Or the internet.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, I think text messaging, Instagram, and the internet.
I definitely think I need to keep TikTok, Google, and Instagram for sure. Also, I use he, him, his pronouns. And Amy, what pronouns do you use?
I use she, her pronouns.
With who?
Lennox. Oh boy, he's gonna really make us work for it today.
That's okay. Puppy time.
Always. So we wanted to talk to you about allyship in isolation. Obviously, there's still a lot going on and the world's still pretty wild right now. And that can make it really difficult for you to feel like you're supported and for you to feel like you're not completely alone. And there are a lot of different ways that you can be an ally, and also a lot of ways that you can reach out to help people learn what it means to be an ally. Isolation doesn't mean you have to be by yourself. So we just wanted to talk to you about that today.
Yeah.
So one of the first things that came to mind when we were talking about this was a lot of us are kind of stuck at home right now. And so in order for us to be able to be home safely and happy and all those good things in between, for a lot of people, that means setting some hard boundaries that might not have had to have been set before, because there's a lot more access to your family, there's a lot more access to your roommates, there's a lot more access to squeaky balls that I'm taking. So, it's hard. You've got to set those boundaries for yourself, because if you're not able to set those boundaries from the get-go, it's going to be a lot harder to sort of advocate for what your needs are. And now is a really good time to do it, because we're sort of turning over an entirely new leaf throughout the entire world right now.
Mm-hmm. A big one for me, like, I thankfully at this point in my life don't live with my parents directly, and we are like on good terms with each other. But I found, even just from like the fact that I'm working from home and I am constantly busy during the weekdays, there's like an inundation of emails and text messages and phone calls, and my dad's learned how to FaceTime, and so that rings and rings and rings. And it's coming from a place of caring, right? My parents really want to check in on me and know how I'm doing. They want to make sure I have everything I need. They want to make sure that I'm safe and okay. But it's really overwhelming to have the same conversation multiple times a day, especially because I'm an anxious person and there's a lot to be anxious about right now, and they definitely have anxieties of their own, and we can kind of spiral if we let ourselves get into those conversations. So I've put up a hard boundary for myself at home, and then when talking through the phone with my dad, I don't watch the news. I'll read articles because I feel I need to keep informed, but I don't watch the news, and I really don't want to get started on it. I don't want to talk about it right now. I'll talk to you about what I'm doing for work and how things are going for me personally, and make sure that you have what you need, like talking about the local area, but other than that, no. So that's a way that I've been able to kind of take back some control of something that was making me really anxious.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good boundary to set. And I know, so I live with my partner, and I'm typically pretty introverted and she's very extroverted. So it's been a hard sort of, I don't want to say hard. It's been an interesting learning curve for the two of us because we are together all the time. And that's fine. That's actually been really good for us. And we've completely gotten back to our roots. I said that in an earlier video. But I'm very content to stay at home and she is not. So it's been an interesting boundary set of we'll go out, but we need to make sure that we've got some time at home because that's how I reset. So that was one of the first boundaries we did have to put up when both of us realized we were going to be working from home. It can be really hard when you are living with your parents because a lot of times your parents want what's best for you. So they're going to seem to come down a little hard on you. And it might not be congruent with what you think your needs are or what you know your needs to be. And it can also be difficult if you're in a home where you're not being affirmed or validated, because then it's even harder to strike those boundaries and keep them going. And that's when another really important means of being an ally and teaching people around you how to be allies is by setting like self-care goals and plans for your mental health. So a lot of people, when they're really anxious, need time by themselves. They need a little bit of time or space or distance to reset themselves or to process things through by themselves and without people coming at them and continuing to have discussions that they're not in a place to have. And that's also a really good opportunity for people to be able to take a look at their needs and how they're processing and what triggers them to better make that plan.
I think allies have a really important role here in that they can demonstrate boundaries if they're living in a home environment where maybe they're an ally to an LGBTQ sibling or parent, and there may be somebody else in the home who is also like having trouble with using the right name and pronouns, for example. I said to Amy when we were brainstorming allyship tips, my favorite one that I wish everyone would implement is committing to making their home a complete respect zone for pronouns and setting that boundary now that if you use the wrong pronouns and name, you will be corrected respectfully and you will be expected to get your language correct, because it can be really draining for a trans person to hear the wrong stuff over and over, and we all do stop trying to correct it. So if for an ally who's in the same home environment to commit to doing that respectful correction and like making sure that those things aren't flying under the radar, they create so much more of a safe environment for that trans person. And it also goes for any LGBTQ identity. Like we all know what Thanksgiving is like with that one relative who maybe you're at home with right now, who has opinions and ways of looking at the world that are not conducive to respecting everyone for their diverse identities. So I would really recommend to my allies setting a boundary that you're going to shut that down now.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. And it's also a really good time to start doing that education and doing education together. The job is never done. You're never going to be fully educated as an ally or as a member of the community. And having this time in isolation together doesn't need to be a bad thing. There's a ton of resources out there. There's a lot of webinars. There's a lot of literature that's available. There's a lot of media that's kind of up and coming. So there are a lot of ways to do that education together. And it is also a really good time to start doing that bonding together, because if you're able to do the education and be like, this is why you using my pronouns means so much to me, or this is what my identity means, being able to learn together and to bridge that gap together can be really restorative in a lot of ways.
I think also like for our allies, like committing to educating yourself, like Amy said, you're not going to ever know anything. Like we're still learning stuff all the time. Today I found out that April 3rd is National Find a Rainbow Day, which totally correlates with our values, hence my beautiful accessories here. I didn't know that. And also I'm learning every day, especially like with COVID, things are changing so quickly. So for an ally to commit to taking this time to reach out to people like us or other service providers that work with the LGBT community if they have questions about a term or if they want to have like specific advice on how to best support someone they know that might be struggling, this is a really good time for that. Especially like trans identified individuals, they have recently had to make the tough decision that all transition related medical care is not considered essential care right now. And while it is essential care, the truth of the matter is like the medical setting like really needs to focus on COVID and making sure people survive this virus, as well as like keeping people who need life-saving surgeries, like making sure there's still like access to surgical like intervention as needed for emergencies. So like a lot of trans people's dysphoria has become like really, really out of control because it feels so invalidating, especially like working towards a surgery is a big deal, and having it be postponed, they're not canceled, they're postponed, is a really, really hard blow. So reaching out to your trans and gender nonconforming friends and family to see how they're doing and how they're coping and what you can specifically do to validate them or give them, you know, the kind of support that they need the most right now. Amy, like what are some of the ways that allies can like provide direct support to like LGBTQ folks in general who are struggling right now?
So I would definitely say doing their outreach first and foremost. I know you and I have been in very close contact with several of the people whom we serve, because we want to make sure that they are getting that validation. We know that home lives can be different family to family. So doing that, that's my dogs, I just got free again. So doing that outreach and doing that one-on-one, you know, I'm just checking in to make sure everything's going okay. Things might be great right now, but at least you know I'm here. So reaching out to people is the number one way to provide that allyship. But I think more than that is doing the educational piece that we said. And, you know, if you've got questions, reaching out to either the people in your life who you know you could have that dialogue with, or reaching out to agencies like us. I mean, you and I have had a test both as members of the community and also as allies to the community that we serve, because we're used to working in an office every single day, and we had to bring our entire agency home with us and sort of flip that script and rewrite it. And we still are providing that service to people, but we've had to think of completely new and creative ways in order to do that, because we can't have that face-to-face. So we have been reaching out through Facebook. We've been reaching out on Instagram. We have a Twitter that our intern is setting up, because I don't know a thing about Twitter. I'm old, I'll say it.
I'm too spicy for Twitter, so. Way too spicy.
Yeah. So, you know, we've had to be really creative in how we've been allies. And it's kind of been a fun challenge for us, because it's made me look at things completely differently. And it's made me think twice about the language I've been using and the different ways to find education. I discovered a whole cache of videos online that I never would have known were there if I hadn't had the time to do the digging and find them. So I think really sitting down with yourself, being open and honest and kind of vulnerable with yourself is the number one way to get that started.
Yeah, and remembering that LGBTQ community members are members of your community, I think is really important. And that sounds very cavalier, but what I mean by that is 6.6 million people had to file for unemployment last week. Lots of joblessness is happening right now. Housing with rent being due is becoming a struggle. People are worried about keeping their phone service, and the government, luckily here in New York State, is moving pretty quickly to put protections in place for people, but there are still some areas where support just isn't there the way people need it to be. So something that I'm really trying to do is, when I can get out to the grocery store or place that Instacart order, adding extra stuff into my order to take and donate at the food pantry. It's very weird right now, especially with making sure things are disinfected as they're getting there. So I think direct ordering an order to be delivered to the food pantry, if that's an option that we can come up with, would be ideal. But don't underestimate, like as an ally, that when you're doing things like donating to the food pantry or helping make resources available or helping create like a resource list for what people can do when they're grieving, or helping advocate for people who may not have had a primary care practitioner who are now sick and don't know where to go. All of that is allyship too. All of that community care, because you're taking care of the community and the community is part of the community. Like that's essentially what allyship is all about, is really like helping take care of other people. So definitely make that a priority in whatever way is safe and accessible for you. I taught myself how to sew handmade masks, and I bought like a ton of rainbow fabrics so that my friends and family that I'm donating them to know who they're from. But yeah, finding like those creative ways to give back to your community right now is like the best way to be an ally, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So we want you guys to take a little bit of time and think about what it means to be an ally and how you can be an ally to the community. I will be putting up a blank bingo sheet on our Instagram that we would love to see you fill out. We call it our ally bingo. So we'd love to see you fill it all out and then tag our Instagram handle in it, put it on Facebook, drop it in the comments here on this video. But we want you to just be able to start thinking about things that maybe you didn't think about prior to this video because you didn't necessarily have to, and start really evaluating, the privilege you carry as you walk through life, and other ways that you can show that you're here for your community and you're here to be an ally, because there's still a lot of work to do. And we're in a very unique situation right now where we have to be very creative and think outside the box in providing allyship and being there for one another. I know, Mitch, you and I text each other like first thing in the morning at this point, and we're like, hey, buddy, how are you feeling? Just to make sure that we're starting our day off on the right foot, because typically we're used to starting our day in the office, but we can't do that now. So we're doing check-ins constantly throughout the day and sending each other pictures of our dogs and, just making sure that our own mental health is being taken care of, and that the mental health of our friends and family is being taken care of, because that's a really huge step. And if you can establish that pattern, you're going to establish that trust.
Absolutely. And if you are someone that is in need of mental health support, specifically, we operate within the Finger Lakes region, but I just this morning have a friend who lives in another state who I did some digging for resources for, so that she could reach out to somebody that was closer to her area. But there's also some really great like national online availability. So if you or someone that or someone that you're an ally to, is really struggling, reach out to us and we can try and help connect them with some good resources. Our team at FCSFL, we have some of the most amazing counselors who have adapted so quickly to telehealth and who are available to help. So we definitely want to make sure that you have an opportunity to get connected if you need that.
Yeah, and as always, we'll put the TREVOR hotline and the trans hotline, and then our two hotlines for texting in our comments in our description below. Yeah, and we want to hear from you too about how you've become a creative ally in this time, and things that you think we should adopt, or things that have worked really well for you, or maybe that haven't worked super great. We want to keep cultivating that learning and bridging that gap and get through this wild time together.
Yeah, we love our allies. We couldn't do any of like the big work without the support of the allies who support our community. So we want you to know that you're appreciated, and we need you now more than ever.
Yeah, so let us know what's going on below, and we will reach out to you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.